We are listing 10 board games that have been getting the most attention over this past month, including 4 that have never been featured in our countdown list before. So let's get right to it and start looking at these games. Hello there and welcome to this month's list of 10 of the most popular board games as of August 2017. Now this top 10 list is based on the daily averages from boardgamegeek.com's hottest games list over the past 30 days. Basically, these are the games that people are looking at and talking about the most over on the internet's largest board game database website. So hopefully, this amalgam of titles in the countdown may help you find some of the new games that you might not have known about yet. We're going to list all 10 games while going into detail about several of them. So, if there's a game on this list that you'd like more information about, well, let me know either in the comments below or over on our Facebook or Twitter pages, and I'll see what we can do about highlighting it in either a future episode or perhaps in its own separate video. But for now, let's get started. Starting off this month's countdown at number 10 is the second edition of Nemos War, a game based on Jules Verne's classic novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which tells the story of Captain Nemo and his fantastical submarine, the Nautilus. Now, an interesting factoid about Nemos War is that it seems to keep a focus on the quality of the single-player experience, keeping the quality of its solitaire gaming as pristine and as high a priority as possible. In fact, some chatter about the game suggests that the game's co-op mode wasn't even originally planned and was added because of requests made by its Kickstarter backers. The game's fundraising campaign reached its goal in under 12 hours, which was likely thanks in part to the quality of the game's artwork by Ian O'Toole and the game's gameplay, of course, which actually at times can be pretty deep, no pun intended. In fact, there's already a multiple-page FAQ for Nemos War already posted on its Board Game Geek page. As for the gameplay itself, it has, occasionally, been loosely compared to Robinson Crusoe, while still standing on its own with its own individual identity, unique mechanisms, and approach to telling the adventures that are taking place in an electric-powered submersible during a time of anti-imperialism and war. Now, the combination of these features all together in a package make it understandable why Nemos War starts off our countdown this month in spot number 10. In spot number 9 on the countdown is a game that, well, to be honest, I thought had already come out a year ago, The Seventh Continent. This game's Kickstarter was successfully funded in fall of 2015 and then underwent an extensive development period and appears now to finally have been completed and starting to ship to its backers as of late July. Now, will this game have been worth the wait? Well, let's hope so, because The Seventh Continent strives to be a solo or cooperative choose-your-own-adventure exploration game, accomplishing this with a variety of cards, such as terrain and events, each of which can affect the story's progress and direction. The game's developers state that the game is designed to take the players hours and hours and hours to complete all of the game's stories. And along the way, it features a quick save system, allowing players to stop playing at any time and then resume their adventure later on, similar to saving a video game in order to pause and resume it later. Now, will the years of development of this system pay off, or is The Seventh Continent better left unsaved? Well, we'll see how it fares in our top 10 list in the months to come. The 8th most popular game in the BGG hotness this past month was the newest offering by designer Emerson Matsuuchi, Century Spice Road. Now, Century Spice Road is the first in what is planned to be a trilogy of games that are all related to one another, each taking place during a different point in history. In Century Spice Road, players are caravan leaders who travel the famed Silk Road to deliver spices to the far reaches of the continent for fame and glory. Now, Century Spice Road has been loosely compared in its application to Splendor. And I want to know, Do you agree that there's a similarity between these two games? Let me know your opinion on just how related or not you think these two games are in the comments below. Gaming juggernaut Scythe falls 3 spots from number 4 to 7 this month. But I get the feeling that this engine-building game set in an alternate history 1920s period is still packing a lot of momentum, thanks in part to the game's upcoming expansion called The Wind Gambit, which will add new tiles and units, including airships. Now, more information on the Wind Gambit expansion is probably going to become available in the months to come as we get closer to its expected 4th quarter 2017 release, possibly even around or during the Essen trade show. So I'll be keeping an eye out for more details on that as we continue through the summer into the fall and winter of this year. Now, Scythe may have slipped a few spaces this month, but the next game on the list, Arkham Horror the card game, holds steady in spot number 6. In this game, players take on the roles of investigators and other characters in the sleepy little New England town of Arkham, where there's always something going terribly, terribly wrong. Arkham Horror the card game is what's known as a living card game, or LCG. And the difference between an LCG and collectible card games, such as Magic the Gathering, is that instead of being sold in small booster packs containing cards of different rarities, all the cards that players need are included in the game's base set, with additional complete card collections to be added to the card pool in future expansions that are released. Now, a periodic point of contention with Arkham Horror the card game is that in order to have enough potential cards to accommodate multiple players, at least 2 core sets of the games need to be bought. And Fantasy Flight's next high-profile LCG coming out this summer, Legend of the Five Rings the card game, is rumored to require players to invest in 3 core sets for the same level of card accommodation. Now, I'm wondering, will this fact affect the game's popularity once it's released? Well, we're going to find out as we get closer to Gen Con and the actual release of Legends of the Five Rings, the card game. But for now, we'll continue the countdown with bated breath. In spot number 5 is newcomer to the top 10, Dice Forge. In Dice Forge, players fight to gain valor with the gods using an armory of dice with removable faces. And this allows players to customize their dice to make them more powerful as the game progresses. These dice will produce the resources that the players need in order to overcome the ordeals that have been concocted and thrown at them by the gods. Now, dice customization still seems to be a fairly new and unexplored idea in board game design. The other most recent dice customization game that comes to my mind is 2014's Rattlebones, in which players would start with a standard 6-sided dice, and throughout the course of the game they would remove and replace those standard dice faces with new sides that performed special abilities and unlocked new options on their turns. Rattlebones received moderate praise from critics, possibly mostly because of its innovative dice mechanism. However, after its novelty wore off, Rattlebones seems to have just, faded into obscurity for the most part. I'm wondering, will Dice Forge suffer the same fate? Or does this dice game have more to offer in terms of its gameplay and longevity than its predecessor did? Well, time is going to tell whether this game will capture people's attention enough to keep them playing it, or if potential players will just keep rolling along. Leaping up the list from the number 10 spot last month, up to position number 4 is Sword and Sorcery, an epic cooperative fantasy board game in which 1 to 5 players fight together against the forces of evil, which are controlled by the game itself. Sword and Sorcery is based on the game system introduced in a game called Galaxy Defenders. However, the designers say that Sword and Sorcery is faster and more dynamic thanks to innovations that they have made to its area movement and area control systems. A bold statement, one that leaves me wondering if these strides towards improving the game's functionality will really cause it to continue to leapfrog its way to an even higher position in our top 10 next month. I wouldn't be so sure that it will, and not because of the quality of Sword and Sorcery, but because the next game in the number 3 spot probably won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Making its debut this month in the top 3 is First Martians: Adventures on the Red Planet by Portal Games. This game pits players against the hostile Martian environment in an entire series of adventures and challenges. First Martians aims to bring several innovations to the board gaming scene by hoping to take app integration to the next level, by using it to maintain the game's balance and introduce a sense of continuity from one game session to another throughout the player's campaign. A bold statement, made even bolder by the fact that players will have the option of playing a series of individual unconnected scenarios or embarking on a custom campaign mode in which each successive game builds upon the last. First Martian's release date was pushed back several times during its development process in order to make improvements to the game design and reach quality control standards that the team had set for themselves. And now that the game is starting to ship, initial reports are that the game has been worth the wait. Will this satisfaction be reflected in its position in the top 10? Well, it's off to a really good start at spot number 3. But in order to move even higher, it's going to need to dislodge the game in spot number 2 that's appeared on the countdown each month for the past 4 months, which is Terraforming Mars holds steady at spot number 2 for a second month in a row, likely assisted by the fact that its much anticipated first expansion, Hellas and Elysium, is finally nearly here and will be available for purchase at Gen Con later this month. In Terraforming Mars, players take on the role of various corporations working aside one another in an effort to terraform the Red Planet and make a tidy little profit in the process. The upcoming expansion introduces new milestones, awards, and a map to the equation. And with all of this good new stuff coming up, where will Terraforming Mars land in next month's countdown after its expansion is finally in the hands of players? Well, we'll find out. But for now, it's time to finish off this month's list by revealing the game in spot number 1. For the past 4 months, the number 1 spot on the list has belonged to one and only one game, Gloomhaven. And that is why I was shocked to discover that the game topping this month's list was What? Still Gloomhaven? You told me it wasn't going to be Gloomhaven again this month. Plausible deniability? What is that? Look, the point is, I have talked about Gloomhaven already. A lot. Just give me another game to talk about. No, I don't care what it is, as long as it's not Gloomhaven. Just pick one. Yeah, anything but Gloomhaven. Okay, good. Okay, here we go. Alright, even though Gloomhaven is technically the game in the number 1 spot, we're going to take this opportunity to highlight a different game that's worth talking about. Founders of Gloomhaven. Founders of Gloomhaven is a competitive tile placement action selection city building game in which each player controls a fantastical race working to build the city of Gloomhaven and gain influence over its residents. This is a standalone game set in the same universe as Gloomhaven, taking place hundreds of years before Gloomhaven itself. Now, in Founders of Gloomhaven, players use action cards to place resource buildings on the map of the city, use these resources to create more advanced resources, then deliver them to proposed building sites to earn prestige. But the idea is that each individual player can't work all on their own independently because each faction can only import a few of the various resource types. Therefore, to create more advanced resources, players are gonna have to work together while still keeping their individual goals in focus. So they have to find that critical balance between the two objectives. It sounds like, even though this is another game set in the Gloomhaven universe, it is vastly different than its predecessor, which is very neat and encouraging to see. Now, will it be met with the same success as the Gloomhaven itself and find its own way onto our top 10 list in the future? Well, we'll have to check back in the months to come in order to find out. But until then, There is your list of the 10 most popular board games as of August 2017. And if you have any suggestions for our next episode, let me know. I always welcome your feedback. And for more board game news, reviews, and commentary, be sure to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. And remember that videos like this are made possible by viewers like you who have been supporting Pair of Dice Paradise's Pod Pledge fundraising campaign. Thank you for your support. It really does make a difference. Until next time, I've been Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise, counting down the most popular top 10 board games of the moment. Take care. Founders of Gloomhaven. I swear, you would be so fired if this wasn't all your equipment.